Welcome everyone for the first ISKCON online farm conference from today until the 4th. So we had a couple of conferences in person due to the new situation. It is all online now. So I want to welcome all the participants. And my name is Sanatana. I'm scheduled to speak on the last day. I'm speaking from Vrindavan, India. I'm have some management function here, and I'm also looking after the Goshala as well as our farm. We have an organic farm. And so I want to welcome, the name of our conference is Krishi Go-raksha Vanijyam, and it's a 4-day program. Today and tomorrow will be how to grow food from home, and then how to connect to mother cow on the 3rd day, and on the last day will be how to transmigrate from Goshala to farm and combine the two. So I want to now invite our first speaker. It is Kalakantha Prabhu. He is the Minister of the International Ministry of Cow Protection and Farming, and he is our first speaker, and he is also the main motivation of bringing the conference to go, and he's the main organizer behind the scenes to get us all moving. So I want to welcome His Grace Kalakantha Prabhu. Please come on.
Hare Krishna. It's a pleasure to be here. Sanatana Prabhu, thank you very much. I'm very happy to be here, and very happy with the work being developed in India. There's a very good team, and they have excellent themes and speakers to really enlighten us. Actually, today we're going to look at different aspects of growing your own food, which is very nice. We have an expert coming up, which is Thiago Barbosa. I'm going to speak about him, and it's really exciting. Okay, so thank you so much, Sanatana Prabhuji.
Hare Krishna. Please take over.
Hare Krishna. So it's a pleasure, as I said, to be with all of you. It's our first online conference, so please bear with us. We are actually getting everything organized. But to start, I would say that we are really looking at this Continental Farm Conference cycle. And what is this Continental Farm Conference cycle? It's basically getting devotees who are in every continent to get together, devotees who are working with farms, with cows, with ecology, agroecology, people who are on the cities and they have kind of an inclination. They think they can help the mission of cow protection agriculture. So we are getting slowly all these devotees and members to participate and bring topics together. And to do that, we need to get experts. And that's one of the main goals of the Continental Farm Conference cycle, is to bring experts who can help us to understand how we will actually realize what is happening with ISKCON and our mission to produce food, to produce natural food. So this is the first ISKCON Online Farm Conference. It's happening in India. India is leading in that sense. I'd like to congratulate the team. India has decided to have representatives for each zone, north, south, east, and west. We just heard from Sanatana Prabhu, who is the representative of the north, and he's doing a very good work there. Right? The purpose of ISKCON Farm Conference and what is the mission of the Ministry of Cow Protection Agriculture? That's really something for us to look at, because our mission is very much to bring people closer to a more natural way of living, to bring people to an understanding that the current lifestyle is very difficult. So this conference, as I mentioned, is happening in many places. It started in #1 in Europe in 2008 with Shivaram Swami, His Holiness Shivaram Swami, and a team of excited devotees. Shyamasundara Prabhu was there at the time, and Gaura Shakti Prabhu and Radha Krishna Prabhu, and so many inspired devotees who really believed in a more simple way of living. And that is gradually is spreading to South America, North America. India came on board, Australia is coming up, Africa is discussing with us. So gradually we're getting there. Um, when I go to these conferences and I speak, the basic, what is the message? What is the message that we want everyone to understand? Well, Prabhupada had a very strong advocacy that the current civilization is really very, very complicated, and that takes away time. We cannot have time for self-realization, for family, for important aspects of life, especially because our livelihoods are very much connected to what he called Ugra karma, which is a very intense system which exploits nature and binds man to a very complicated lifestyle. Therefore, we all become very distant from our food, from producing our food. And Prabhupada was very strong on that point. He was always referring to Goloka Vrindavan, how Krishna and Balaram were always dealing with so many cows. And you can see in this picture how many systems today, like Alan Savory, proposes intensive grazing, how Krishna's model is being so mirrored. He's kind of coming closer. So many cows trampling the earth, distributing cow dung and urine, and then just bringing fertility to the soil. And on the back, you can see the forests, and you can just see the agroforestry systems which are building up in the planet. And that is a blueprint which Krishna gives, and the agroecologists are kind of understanding the blueprint of the universe. We call that Dharma and ecology, which will be my talk a little later. And see Prabhupada here is talking about the ancient scriptures of India, the Srimad Bhagavatam, and there he's mentioning how important it is, the position of the cow, to protect cows, to produce your food, and to have a lifestyle which is conducive to self-realization. So this is in 1969, and he was really excited about doing that with us. And he wrote to many of his disciples, like Maheshwari does in 76, and he said, we have got more than 100 temples all over the world, and attached to every temple, we are opening farms, and in many cities, restaurants, and all of them are going on very successfully. So that's his report. There were 14 farms at that time, and he was saying they're going very successfully. Today, we have around 65 projects around the globe, and many of them are doing well, and some are suffering from challenges. But on a whole, there's a sense of progression. There's a sense of progression for that, right? And Prabhupada was always there behind, signing the letters and personally guiding, you know. And today, I mean, we really have this system which is called syntropic farming. And syntropic farming is trying to replicate what nature does, what the forest does. And here is a group working. They make rows of trees, and then they prune the trees. They call chop and drop, and that is a permanent factory of biomass. And for that topic, today we have our first speaker, which is actually from Australia. He's Thiago Barbosa, and he's a wonderful person who's been doing incredible work in South America, Belize, Barbados, Curacao, and Australia itself, around all those areas. And he's been traveling extensively. He started Ernest Gitt, and he is going to talk to us how nature gives abundance. So I'm going to invite Thiago Barbosa on board, and after him, we'll have a presentation from His Holiness Bhakti Raghava Swami, and then I conclude with a little bit of Dharma and ecology, and that's for today. Okay? So I hope you all enjoy this conference, and let's welcome Thiago Barbosa all the way from Gold Coast in Australia.
Hello.
Hello, Thiago. Welcome. Be very welcome. You have been with us before, and it's a pleasure to have you here. And today you're going to speak about how nature gives abundance. Is that correct?
Oh, yeah. Thank you for having me here. It's a pleasure. Thanks for the people who connected me with Krishna Consciousness. The devotees from New Govardhana here in Australia, Jita, Damodar, and the management crew from the farm over here. They are doing an amazing job, and I'm very grateful that they could connect me with you, Kalakantha, and I'm very happy to be here. Thank you.
Can you speak a little bit about yourself, and then you can just introduce your topic, and I'll leave you to speak to the audience. You're speaking to the Indian audience, and in India, there's a great potential for agroecology. There are many groups working with it, and I hope that you will start working that subcontinent, which is huge.
Oh, thank you. So my name is Thiago Barbosa. I started working with researching about agroecology a couple of years ago. And in my journey, I discovered the wonders of agroforestry, and studying more about agroforestry, I found out that there was this methodology in agroforestry called syntropic farming, where syntropy, where this methodology was developed by a Swiss German living in Brazil named Ernest Gutsch. If you guys want to learn more about what is syntropic farming, if you want to see a video, there is a beautiful short documentary on YouTube called Life in Syntropy. So just go on YouTube and type Life in Syntropy, and you find more information about it. Since then, since I've discovered this methodology, I've been going back and forth from Brazil many times a year and learning more and more about how great it is to understand this house that we live in. What I mean about this house is this planet that we live in, and in this planet that we live, there is some laws and principles. Okay, if you break a law, and in a city, doesn't matter in each country you are, there are some consequences. You might pay a little fine, you might pay a heavy fine, and depending on how bad you break the law, you might get arrested. In some countries, you can even get sentenced to death, you know? So in this planet that we live, in this house that we live, there is some natural laws that cannot be broken. And one of the laws of this planet is the complexification of life, how to keep life alive, and how we are connected and interconnected with everything that lives here. So, and not only humans, but all the animals, birds, microlife in the soil, everything has a function. And the function of every living being in this planet is not only to keep life alive, but to increase and potentialize and make life better and more abundant. So when Kalakantha said that the theme of this talk would be abundance, and how we can create systems of abundance, for our beautiful surprise, we don't need to create the system. The system already exists. It's been working in this planet for billions and billions of years. We just need to understand that we are part of this highly intelligent living organism where everything belongs, everything is connected and interconnected, and everything's working together towards one goal: to keep life more abundant, to make life more abundant for everything. So I say that little worms, when worms is passing through life, they're not just passing through, they are digesting organic matter, they are improving the soil conditions. And every action or interaction of this microlife in the soil, this living being that lives in the soil, it's only to increase fertility for all the other living beings that lives in there. When plants are coming to this planet, their primary function is to increase conditions through photosynthesis, to transform sunlight into food for us. And every animal, when they are passing through life, they are eating, and their droppings are fertilizing the soil, making it better for everything that comes after it. So for us, that we belong in this planet, we live with everything here, we need to eat. And we need to eat nutritious food. We need to eat abundant food, you know. We don't want to eat, especially in Krishna consciousness, prasada is a very common thing, where every weekend here in Australia there is a feast, and we want to eat very high nutritious food. And how does it come to be that food can be so nutritious? A lot of people might think that food comes out of the shelf at the supermarket, but actually it comes from a system that everything that belongs in the system, it's working to make this system more abundant. And if we want to eat nutritious food, we need to understand how this system that the food comes from, how it works. How can this system provide such an abundance in nutrition for us to eat? And if we step a little bit, if we just think a little bit before that, this energy that comes to us through the food, where does this energy come from? From the sun, and then from the cosmos. And I like that at the temples, after we eat, we sing, we chant to the divine, back to the cosmos. So there is that cycle of energy that keeps cycling through the universe. And in this cycle, if you actually break it down, without a forest, that wouldn't be nutritious food for us, you know. So through this cycle of energy that comes from the cosmos, through the sun, through this planet, and before it gets to us, the middlemen are the plants and the forest. And when Kalakantha and we start talking about cow protection and how to make a better environment for cows, even on his presentation just before, he was showing that lots of cows, and on the sides, well, what did you see? Forests. So the cows, they come from the element forest as well. And every type of food that we eat comes from the element forest as well. So I think that forest, for me, it's like a community of plants, animals, root systems, microlife in the soil, and that's everything is working as a community to provide, to service life, to keep life more abundant. And if we want to create a system of abundance, if we want to eat nutritious food, we should definitely understand where the food that we eat comes from originally. It comes from a system in a forest. If we want to improve conditions for our animals to live, our domesticated animals to live, we need to understand where these animals comes from on the system forest. And we gotta try to mimic it. And because we don't need to create anything. As I said before, it's being created already. It's already working perfectly. And this system provides everything. It's servicing life, it's keeping life more abundant. And when we're talking about the element human, us in the system that we need to eat and we want to create healthy food, nutritious food for us, we need to try to co-create with nature, and try to mimic, replicate agro ecosystems that works perfectly in harmony with nature. And syntropic farming or agroforestry systems, in my understanding, is a beautiful way to make it, to understand how ecosystems function, so we can create agro ecosystems where we can not only provide better life for the animals that we have, we can also create better and nutritious food for us to eat. And after we do all, and while we do all of this, we can leave a better planet behind, not only for us, but for all the wildlife that lives within and around our farms. And that's the purpose of this talk today, was to sparkle the idea in you guys how we are growing our food and how we can better enhance the way that we grow our food. Here on these pictures here, Kalakantha is showing us. Imagine if I was a cow. I would love to live under the shelter of these trees and be nurtured by the food generated by these trees, because no one likes to eat only lettuces, or no one likes to eat only carrots for the rest of their lives. So the cows, they don't like to eat only grass. If we could have more diversity of food for them without having to buy them from inorganic source of production, that would be even better. If we could produce the food there where they live and not be worried about having to irrigate the system, not be worried about a lack of food. Because when you see systems where our animals live nowadays, it's very sad. They live in the burning sun with very just grass to eat, and we expect them to have a good life. We don't like to live in the burning sun every day, so I think that the animals don't as well, and neither does the plants. The plants, they don't like to live. There are some plants that they like to have some shelter, some plants that likes to be sheltered by others, some plants that likes to give shelter to other plants. And when you're talking about self-resilience, self-sustainability, self-sufficiency, we need to work with this system that's already in place, the system that's been working this planet for billions and billions of years, that produce food for so much living organisms in this planet. All we need to do is understand how it works and put our food production system in accordance, in alignment with the ecosystem. And that's what we call agro-ecosystem, agroecology, And That's my message for the devotees, for the farmers in this planet. Because I travel a lot around the world, and I hear a lot from people that, oh, but we don't have irrigation here. Nothing grows without irrigation in this area. It's a lie, because if you look around, there are trees living without irrigation all over the place, you know. And every place that I've been in this planet, there is an ecosystem that's functioning properly without any inputs at all. So if we understand how this system works, we can put our food production systems and our animal uh, creation system into place. And that's my message for everyone. And when you take out of the context of a farm and you try to bring it to communities, to cities, and how can we do that in a better way? Again, we need to understand, where do we live, what would grow on that area, on that season, with that climate, and try to grow it in harmony with the natural processes. What I mean, the natural processes is try to use what's already there, especially in Krishna farms around the globe. There is a lot of manure from the animals. There is a lot of seeds from the plants on the surroundings, and we can collect these seeds and implement agro ecosystems that can be highly abundant. There is a system in Brazil, close to Brasilia, being nurtured by a beautiful farmer, João Pereira, where he grows around. There was a study made that he was able to grow over 70 tons of food per hectare using syntropic farming methodology. 70 tons of food per hectare. So I guess that's a lot of food. That is enough to feed the entire community. And how does he do it? Understanding the natural processes of life. When I talk about natural processes of life, is what is the natural processes of human life? Okay, our grandparents came, create conditions for our parents. Our parents came, create conditions for us. We came, we are create conditions for our kids, and that's what we call natural succession in life, in a human life. In the plant's life, they are the same. Some plants comes first to create conditions and nutrition and um, climate for the next generation, and the next generation comes in create as a community, not one plant, as a community. They come in, they create conditions for the next generation of plants, and that plant creates generation, and every time life becomes more abundant and more complex. And that's the way that the community of plants works together towards abundance. So if we are growing food in our backyard, we don't want to grow one citrus here, another citrus over there, and another mango over there. We need to understand, what are the plants that can grow together with citrus? What are the plants that can grow together with mangoes? Because plants grow in different times and they occupy different space in the system. And this is a natural law. It's not like, well, because Thiago is saying so. It's a natural law. That's what happens in nature. And if we break a law, we got to pay a price. In most of the cases, when we try to break the law of natural succession, putting the right plants in place at the right time, in the right community, what we do, we place them separated. The plants stress out, they get sick, or in most of the case, they don't cycle nutrients, and then we have to bring inputs, organic or not. We still have to bring. That's the price that we pay for breaking the natural law of natural succession, plants growing together. And we cannot live bringing inputs into our land all the time. As you guys could see through this COVID, a lot of transports, importation, exportation got canceled or stopped, and a lot of the some of the inputs could not be shipped around. And imagine if you have a farm, you rely on external inputs, and suddenly out of the blue you cannot have these inputs anymore. What do? Because you don't understand that how this natural process, how nature works. And let's study another case another scenario that could happen. Imagine you're pumping water out of the ground, or you are relying on the water spring that comes down into your property. Imagine with this extensive droughts that we're having, this water table dries out, or your water springs dries out. What will you do if you don't know how to grow food without irrigation? If your orchards rely 100% on irrigation, what do? And I bet that we lived in this planet without irrigation for hundreds of thousands of years. And especially the plants being here without irrigation, without pipes for hundreds of billions of years. So why do we need to use these fertilizers, these inputs? Why do we need to use irrigation? Because we don't understand the natural process of life. Because if we understand, we could grow our systems exactly how nature does, understanding how each plant belongs in a time and space, and then we can put them all together, and then they can grow together as a community, and not only grow together happy with minimal inputs or no inputs at all, but also provide very rich, nutritious food for us to eat. And yes, I think that's my main message out of this, how we can grow better food is, how do you start a syntropic farm? Thank you. That's a very good question. First of all, you need to choose an area that you have in your farm. And in this, by choosing an area, you can mark where your garden beds will be, and then choose the plants. And I highly recommend you guys to do a little research on what is syntropic farm. There is a lot of videos online that you can get your head around what it is, and join some of the workshops that's happening all over the world at the moment. There is a lot of online content there. But basically, is you choose an area, choose where your garden bed is going to be, choose the selection of plants that will fulfill the function over time and different space, what we call natural succession and stratification. And once you chose the plants, the right plants, you plant them at the beginning of the rainy season. Okay, with those plants that you plant, you're gonna plant your veggies that will grow very fast in a couple of weeks, or the first few weeks and first few months, and they will survive beautifully because you plant at the beginning of the rainy season. They will have a couple of months of rain, and these veggies will come first and create conditions for your fruit trees that will come in a medium term. And these fruit trees will also grow with the forests of the future. So basically, you can start your syntropic farming by choosing the area, marking where your garden beds will be, choosing the plants accordingly with the natural succession and the stratification, and choosing the plants that you like to eat and the plants that can grow at that time in that season, and then just work with the system. It's not an easy thing to understand. Actually, we're talking about 500 billion years old system that's been working in this planet. And if you really want to understand that, how it works, it would be good to do a little research and try to work with these principles. Okay. Yeah. Kalakantha, is there any other question that's coming up online for us? A common question that I get all the time is, how many plants should we plant together in a community? If you really want to mimic how nature works, by putting all the combination of plants that will work over time through space, like we put between 20 to 100 plants per square meter. So it means that every meter you have between 20 to 50 plants growing together. And why am I saying that? Because people always ask if plants, they don't compete to each other. As I said at the beginning of this talk, in nature there is no competition. There is only cooperation and collaboration. All these plants, they work perfectly together and in harmony to potentialize and help each other to have a better life. So that's one of the questions that I get all the time. And another question that I get is, does this work everywhere, anywhere in the planet? Said, yes, wherever there is a tree or there was a tree, it works, okay? And it works in cold climates, it works in hot climates, on the tropics, in the subtropics, in temperate climates, in arid, semi-arid conditions. It works everywhere. How do I know? Because nature has been working in these places for millions and billions of years. So, and we are doing systems on some islands on the Caribbean, islands of Curacao, Barbados, Trinidad, Tobago, Costa Rica, and here in Vanuatu, Fiji, and there are people doing systems like that in Europe, Germany, Portugal, and we have been doing that here in Australia in different conditions. I've just did a system on the outback of Australia where it's very, very dry. Last year, the whole year, they had like around 75 milliliters of water, like less than 100 milliliters of water the whole year. And the system is working. It's thriving. It's growing. Yeah, so the system works everywhere, in every climate. And people ask me, so do I need a farm to grow the system? Do I need to have a big farm? No, you can start with 1 square meter. If you have 1 square meter in your backyard, if you don't have 1 square meter in your backyard, you can buy a little pot of 25 by 25 or 1 by 1 by 1, and that's your square meter. And there in this square meter, you can put a whole of combination of plants together, from little veggies like radishes, rockets, lettuces, eggplants, sweet potatoes, papayas, pineapples, mangoes, avocados, everything growing together in the same pot at the same time, in the same square meter. And you can do 1 square meter a day or 1 square meter a week, and doesn't take much time. On the day we did 20 linear meters, 20 meters by 1 by 20, and took us like 4 hours. One person, 20 meters. So if you do 5 meters in a day, that will take you like an hour, you know? So in 1 hour, you can do a lot. And if you understand a little bit of the combination of plants, you can put all these plants together, and they will provide you a lot of food. In 1 square meter, for example, you can put around, I would say, 20, 30 rocket plants or radishes plants with 10 or 15 lettuces, with together with 2 or 3 eggplants, with 1 papaya tree, 3 pineapples, one avocado tree, and a few other plants that you can still put in there at the same time. So talking about like over 50 plants just there, you know, all growing together happily as a community, all working in cooperation and collaboration. And no, they don't compete, they don't steal nutrients from each other. And if we are building the system, the only thing that it's part of the principle of building a syntropic farming is managing. If you creating life, you got to learn how to manage it. If you make babies, you don't just make the babies and let them grow free. They grow free. You got to manage them. You got to nurture them. You got to make sure that they have conditions to live in that time and space. That's the same with the forest, or a mini forest in that case. And it's doable. You can do that in your backyard, in your balcony. If you have a farm, you have no excuse. It's doable. It's beautiful to do, and it's so satisfying as well. Okay. What other questions do I get? Yeah.
Hare Krishna, Thiago, that was wonderful explanation, and I think you covered from someone who's living in a city, has a small plot of land or even a pot, up to a farm. And it's really exciting to hear that, because many of the farms which I visit, I can see that people lack that understanding of how nature works, and you've touched that. I think that's a very important principle, and I believe that you tend to work with systems which we just showed before, like this one which is you were explaining about, right?
Yes. So for me, what is a system, Kalakantha? System is, doesn't matter if it's a human body system, if it's a computer system, if it's a car system, a system, or a forest system, or agricultural system. What is a system? It's different elements made of different materials, in different shapes, with different functions, all working together towards one goal. Okay? So if I have a system car and expect my car to function properly, I should have all the pieces, all the elements in place, fulfilling their function. If I have an agricultural system, I need to have all the pieces of the system in place to make sure that that system is functioning properly. Okay? So if we got to build a system, we need to understand you don't buy a car and just start assembling it not knowing how it works. You got to put the wheel where the wheel is, the engine where the engine is, the seats where the seat is, and so you can get a car to function. That's the same with agriculture. If we're going to build a system, agricultural system, we need to understand how a system functions. And the best input that you could have is knowledge.
Fantastic. And on that note, someone is asking us, Peter is making a question to us, and his question is, Hare Krishna, where can we find information on suitable combination of plants? That's a very good question.
Okay, what I will do is I'll share with you, Kalakantha, so you can post on the medias, social medias, and all the channels there. Very easy guides, like made for kids, that we can read some easy ways to understand the system and also there is some easy combination of plants that you can put them all together as well.
That's fantastic. Fantastic. So Thiago is promising to give us a very, very simple, interesting guides. And by tomorrow, those of you who are watching us, we'll publish that on our Facebook, on our YouTube channel, and also on the conference. Thiago, on that note, I'd really like to thank you. We have here someone who is in America, Bashu Ghosh Prabhu. He's definitely advocate of simple living, of cow protection, and he wrote Vande Go Mataram, which is a very beautiful sentence in India. And what I like to say is a big thank you to you. And we hope to develop systems, as you mentioned, in India, in Vrindavan, in Mayapur, and start having workshops on a regular basis. And I'm sure if you watch tomorrow, Subhash Palekar, you see how he is really into the fine tuning of nature. Plus, he's looking at the subtle knowledge of India from Jivamrita and all this Ayurveda knowledge, which combines into agriculture also. So I think East and West, that was Prabhupada's mission. He wanted to join the East and the West. And I think if we join that, we have a great scope under the ban of agroecology, as you mentioned earlier. So thank you so much. And
thank you.
And someone just gave a thank you. I'd like to say that. He just wrote, "Thank you for organizing the conference. Can you please elaborate more on how to do farming without good irrigation? In India, we are getting land where salty water is coming. Can we talk on this type of land?" That's Harinam Sevak Prabhu. Wow, what a question, huh? It's a beautiful question. Deserves a whole seminar. What do you say?
Yeah, actually, one of the purpose of what we do is try to understand how to plant water. Okay, how can we plant water? And we do this type of agriculture in very dry conditions, in very dry climates, and even in these places, there are plants that grows very healthy and they thrive very well. So yeah, as you said, I would need at least another 2 or 3 hours here just to explain that topic. But
Harinam, what I like to say to Harinam Sevak Prabhu, I think your question is really important because we do tend to either depend on rains, which is good, but sometimes rains are not coming so regularly, or we have salty water, and that's a problem. And there are technologies where you use less water, as Thiago is saying, and those technologies with the right plants do combine great results. What we can do, to your question, I think, Thiago, is that we can open ourselves to a later replying to him and then making more public the response. What do you say to that?
Yeah, I'll be more than happy to accommodate more questions and answer most all these questions. And even if Kalakantha agrees, in the future we might be able even to run an online seminar about how to actually go through these whole principles step by step.
I think that's a goal of the conference, is to bring experts closer to devotees, and that's definitely on our mind. Not only mine, but also the Indian representatives have discussed that to some degree. Okay, so thank you so much, Thiago. We need to move. We have another great speaker. Thank you very, very much. And we will...
Thank you very much.
Yes, we'll be in touch, and we'll be looking forward to your links. So tomorrow they'll be asking about this beautiful guides of choosing plants and companion plants.
I'll send it all to you now through WhatsApp, and you forward it to them. Thank you, everyone, and I'm really looking forward to implement this everywhere in this planet. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Thiago. It was a pleasure having you with us. Okay. So everyone, Hare Krishna. So continuing our conference, our first online conference, we do have a very special speaker coming up, and he's been working on this for many years. He's a very dedicated soul. He is a very holy person. His Holiness Bhakti Raghava Swami, and he is in Hebrew right now, so his internet connection isn't working so well. So Sri Ram, who is working with him closely, he has organized a video which will play now. But I understand that His Holiness Bhakti Raghava Swami is available for questions, and that will be really nice. So Sri Ram, are you ready? Can we play your video? I'm going to add the video to the stream now, and I hope you enjoyed. It's about a 15-20 minutes video. I think you might enjoy that. Okay, so let's hear His Holiness Bhakti Raghava Swami.
Hare Krishna. Welcome to the first India online conference for farming and cow protection, organized by the Ministry of Cow Protection and Agriculture under the leadership of His Grace Kalakantha Prabhu. I'll begin with just short invocation. Om Surabhyaya Namaha, Om Surabhyaya Namaha, Om Surabhyaya Namaha. Namo Brahmanya Devaya, Go Brahmana Hitaya Cha, Jagat Hitaya Krishnaya, Govindaya Namo Namaha. It's only a few days ago that I came to know about this conference, and it's only a few hours ago that I came to know I needed to prepare a short presentation, which I'm doing now. The subject matter is of utmost importance, and I would like to share a letter that I received just yesterday. I occasionally get such type of letters from devotees around the world. This one happens to be from Lithuania, and I'll just read it to put things a little bit in perspective, which is very much connected with the topic of farming and cow protection. Dear Maharaj, please accept my humble obeisances. All glories to Srila Prabhupada. I live in Lithuania, Vilnius. I want to say the person writing, the devotee, he's a devotee. English is not his first language. I'll read the letter as it is. I'm sure I'm not giving his name, but you will get the gist of what is being presented. I want to say you big thanks for your preaching activity. It actually gave some reason for my life. Somehow, not long time ago, I understood giant importance of creating self-sufficient communities all around the world and establishing Varnashrama there. That COVID is a last signal for all devotees to start now. Otherwise, it would be late. I was living in total illusion, thinking that it is no problem to practice bhakti yoga in some conditions that I attach to. Just chant Hare Krishna, little bit preach, follow regulative principles, etc., and it is enough. Until I didn't pay attention to Srila Prabhupada's request about 50%. He's referring to Prabhupada's 50% of his unfulfilled mission, establishing Varnashrama Dharma. So, of course, I irregularly read and study Prabhupada's books and letters, but now I just really understood the importance of this. It is some special mercy which comes from saintly people. My life changed seriously after meeting devotees, getting mercy from spiritual association, after visiting Dham, and now after hearing about necessity of Varnashrama from Acharya and his followers. So even if I couldn't do anything, still I will always meditate on this instruction and try to realize it any case, and never say, like, this is not so important. Not long time ago, some team of devotees, including myself, started to go in this direction. And seeing this situation in the world, we understand that every minute is expensive, no time to wait. The subject matter is actually an urgent one, in that Srila Prabhupada has given us that standing order. What we fail to understand, we means people in general, and unfortunately, the vast majority of our devotees. The vast majority of our devotees fail to understand that actually the real norm for sustainable living is when we are connected with the land and when we are connected with the cows. Modernization that has been ongoing since the last few hundred years, since the days of the Industrial Revolution, and the French Revolution for that matter as well, has misdirected very badly, globally, the vast majority of people, the vast majority of leaders in different countries on this path of artificial, so-called material advancement, minimizing and in many places forgetting the real goal and purpose of life. Someone sent just a few days ago, and we shared it on some of our social media, the example of the Mennonites. I'm sure many of you have seen or have heard. The Mennonites are a group of Christians going back many centuries who have carried their tradition of what we refer to as simple living and high thinking. Every day they read the Bible. They don't use modern facilities. They primarily live off the land. Very simple life. They are very acutely aware of the dangers of modernization. Of course, some may see that this is like an extreme, but let's look at what we have around the world today. We have an extreme in terms of degradation, in terms of deterioration. And therefore, the devotees of the Krishna Consciousness movement, as desired by Srila Prabhupada, spoke on this point so many times. I'm sure devotees have heard this expression, first is food. First is food does not mean that we are simply on the bodily platform and want to eat. There's a whole hidden philosophy. There's a whole very deep philosophy behind first is food. I was taken aback a few months ago when this COVID broke out. I had just arrived here where I am presently in South India at our Hibri community, SSKBK. And after the government of India announced this lockdown, very quickly actually, without anyone being prepared for this, we all know how it brought all kinds of difficulties. And I was taken aback actually when I heard how in Sri Mayapur, our world capital, within 1 week or two from Mayapur, we were getting SOS signals. Mayapur was in difficulty, and so many other people were in difficulty. Why? Because we're not growing our food. Why? Because we are forgetting the basic principles of our Vedic culture, which is primarily an agrarian culture. We have a tremendous responsibility. We have the greatest philosophy But we tend, unfortunately, to philosophize. We are too much on the spiritual aspect, minimizing and very often forgetting or even rejecting. And that's the case in the context of Varnashrama. We cannot speak about farming. We cannot speak about cow protection without speaking about Varnashrama. Just like many years ago, a group of devotees were commissioned to study community development. This was just 1 or 2 years before the centennial, Srila Prabhupada's centennial anniversary, 1996. I was not involved with that. I came to know later on. And of course, one of the major outcomes of this research, where the individuals involved in the research pointed out, we cannot study community development without speaking about Varnashrama. And therefore, that group came out with a book that we have highly been recommending, speaking about Varnashrama. Not only we have to speak about Varnashrama, we have to live. We have to live the basic principles of Varnashrama. Otherwise, our philosophy is an armchair philosophy. Our philosophy has no meaning. Krishna consciousness has no meaning if we cannot apply on all aspects, basically 2 aspects: the spiritual aspect or the spiritual dimension of performing devotional activities, especially in the matter of chanting the holy name. But it's especially important today because of this major deviation. And we've gone so far astray from the norm that we cannot even understand it. And therefore, we need to be reminded. And we can only be reminded if we actually regularly hear Prabhupada's lectures or read Prabhupada's books. Most of our devotees are not actually doing that, you know. So I've been, in the last 2 years, going from village to village here in India, and by Krishna's mercy, I ended my 108th village, which was my target, right here in Hibri. Hibri was actually our 108th village. Just a few days after we came here, this is when this lockdown was declared in India. And I can vouch and attest to the fact that our villages here in India are in extreme critical condition. Extreme critical condition because people have forgotten some of the basics in terms of farming, in terms of cow protection. We're not doing farming. We're doing agro-business, modern system of farming. We're doing dairy business. We're doing the very thing that Shastra is forbidding us. So devotees have this most important responsibility of showing by example. If we don't learn to show by example, then what is the use of our society? What is the use of this International Society for Krishna Consciousness? Therefore, there is an urgent need for ongoing discussions, speaking about Varnashrama, speaking about how, we hear about farming and agriculture. I mean, the title of this conference is Krishi Go-raksha Vanijyam. That is the concise formula for sustainable, ideal, sustainable scientific economy. And again, I remind our grihastas, many of whom will be watching or participating in this conference, it is Srila Prabhupada's very clear statement that the vast majority of our householders should make their livelihood from the land, from agriculture. I'm not making this up. It is time to wake up. It is high time to wake up. Even as we speak now, today is the last month, or rather the last day, I think, of September, 30th of September. This year, 2020, is soon to come to an end. And we have no idea what's in the making in the months to come. Therefore, actually, there are a number of, I would say, knowledgeable devotees that we have here in India. India is blessed in many ways in that there has been this revival movement outside of ISKCON, largely. Within ISKCON, a few attempts, a few individuals are doing something. But India in so many ways is ideal. Asian countries in general are ideal. But Prabhupada explains that actually this lifestyle, agriculture and cow protection, is a way to live. It's a lifestyle. It is the most natural lifestyle. And the one that actually will meet our basic needs and necessities in the best manner, the easiest manner. Of course, many will say, well, it's not so easy. It takes a lot of time. We're not, so many excuses one will present. Granted, there are challenges in making the kind of shift that needs to be made because we have a serious imbalance. We have a serious imbalance within our ISKCON society by giving over importance, by creating an imbalance between our spiritual practices and our more practical day-to-day activities that are meant, if done properly, if done based on the prescriptions and the instructions and the guidance given in the Shastra, that will simplify our lives much, much more than our lives are being experienced today in this 21st century. I'm very thankful actually to Kalakantha Prabhu. He is as the minister for the global ministry of cow protection and agriculture. He has been working very hard. And we are having a special, and I'm directing this to our leaders here in India. More recently, some of you may know, especially those who are members of the IIAC, the ISKCON India Advisory Committee. This ministry that was established, IDVM, ISKCON Daiva Varnashrama Ministry, is meant to play a very important role. It's been limited in terms of what it could accomplish. And there's an urgent need right now. There's an urgent need for our leaders here in India to give the necessary time to understand what this ministry is supposed to be doing. This is not a pitch for the ministry, it's a pitch for this 50% of Prabhupada's movement, which is yet to be addressed. And therefore, these kind of conferences where different devotees will be sharing various thoughts, various activities. It's not to say that we're not doing anything, but actually on the whole, we are way behind. And therefore, if we want to please our founder, Acharya Srila Prabhupada, if we want to actually be effective in terms of reaching out to the needs of the world today, if we want to be ideal examples, then we absolutely have to understand these instructions given by our founder, Acharya Srila Prabhupada. Otherwise, we will not be pleasing Srila Prabhupada, and we will be failing as an institution. There are many ramifications because we have not sufficiently dealt with this whole dimension. Farming and agriculture, which is one of our ministry, is addressing what is called the Vaishya Varna. But we have the Brahmana Varna, we have the Kshatriya Varna, we have the Shudra Varna. And these are meant to be interconnected. So therefore, we recently started this Varnashram College online. We are imploring, humbly requesting our leaders here in India to give their attention to help establish Varnashram colleges where these matters will be discussed, where devotees will be educated and will be trained in applying our philosophy, where we learn to balance our spiritual duties as well as our material duties in life. So I would like to therefore end on this note by making this humble request. Let us give the necessary time, and especially weeks to come, there will be some, we are proposing that a national committee be established, steering committee, to look in different ways whereby this whole area of natural farming, Vedic farming, and cow protection, as well as education, Gurukula, these are absolutely essential and they are urgently needed as well. So I want to thank you very much for participating in this online conference, and I wish all success to those who will be making their various presentations. And once again, I want to thank Kalakantha Prabhu and the Ministry for cow protection in agriculture. And we hope that more devotees will become aware and conscious and involved as well. Thank you all very much. Jai Srila Prabhupada Ki. Hare Krishna.
We just heard from His Holiness Bhakti Raghava Swami, and his message coming from Varnashram Dharma, which is something he believes very much in, and he's very much working with it. And I say that the Ministry of Cow Protection and Agriculture has worked closely with the Varnashram initiatives, both in Europe and in India, as globally, because we cannot have farms, we cannot have cows if we don't have a community. And actually, today, the big topic is intentional communities, which is a community with an intention. So within the Varnashram scenario, an intentional community is very much what is proposed. And that's, of course, a topic for a whole new seminar. We did have some comments and questions. One of them came from Kumar, and I think I'd like just to show very quickly. He brings up, if we have good congregation who contribute and maintain temples, why should we take this step of farm projects? And I did answer on the chat to him, but I'd like to mention, Kumar, you're right. And I think one of the points His Holiness Bhakti Raghava Swami was making is that we tend to have a lifestyle which is a little bit far from a natural way of living. For example, we don't know where food is coming from. So both Thiago, Barbosa, and His Holiness Bhakti Raghava Swami were pointing that there's a natural way of existence, of abundance. And the more we are close to that system, the better we understand our position, the healthier we are, and the better in place we position ourselves. So if you are in a congregation where there are so many people who are well established, have jobs, probably with the COVID, there's a big hit. And at one point, if there's a cut down in resources, it's difficult for a temple to exist. So if you have your food guaranteed, if you have, even if you could supply your congregation, even if there's a great collapse, you can still help. Of course, ISKCON missions is to preach. That's our mission, is to show the position of the Vedic culture and Vedic wisdom and Vedic Siddhanta. And the base of that, as His Holiness Bhakti Raghava Swami says, we need to have a very solid connection to a simple and more natural way of living. Because if you have food, everything becomes easier. So we do thank him very much for that question. And and then actually here, someone also mentioned, he just said, Pranavalata just said, the sooner you accept a more natural way of lifestyle, the better. Every word spoken by Maharaj is so precious. Hope we all can do something together soon. Thank you, Maharaj. So that was his gratitude. Thank you, Pranava, for that comment. Very good. So now to finalize, we couldn't have Maharaj here, as he mentioned, he's in Hebrew. It's raining heavily, so he couldn't take the questions with us. I'll just finalize today's session. I'll just finalize with a few points to tie our first day of conference. And we did speak about a natural system, and that's what I like to start with. And that system, we stopped with a forest. So we had a forest, and Thiago Barbosa was explaining how there's a natural system into that. And Srila Prabhupada, he spoke again and again about Dharma. And Dharma, he would translate many times as something which could be very connected to sustainability. He would say the term sustainability comes from sustain in English. And Dharma has a Sanskrit verbal root, drit, which means to sustain. So Dharma and sustainability have a very intimate connection, you know. So when we do talk about Dharma, Dharma can be a very big topic. The Webster says conformity to one's duty and nature. That's the Vedic Siddhanta. And the Vedic Siddhanta says the innate characteristic of a being or a thing. So the innate characteristic of a being, something that cannot be changed. No matter what you do, that cannot be changed. So that Prabhupada is coming from that perspective of Dharma, something which is intrinsic, right? Occupational duty, constitutional duty, that is called Dharma. Functional duty, that's a very important sentence Prabhupada speaks. And like fire, you know, when we talk about fire, well, you see that fire basically is something which has a function of what can fire do. Fire can basically produce heat and light, no matter what you do. So that's the Dharma of fire. And like that, he would expand to show that everything in nature has an intrinsic nature. So when Thiago Barbosa refers to the system in nature, he is referring to Dharma. Dharma of the forest. The forest has a Dharma. The trees, each individual plant has a Dharma. And when you get close to that Dharma, then that system functions very nicely. And as His Holiness Bhakti Raghava Swami is saying, when you have a social system which is very close to Dharma, then Varnashram Dharma, that's a system, it helps us a lot in understanding the natural laws, the divine laws of nature, right? And it's so interesting to see that today FAO is the Food or Agriculture Organization entity on the world is going towards agroecology, because there is an understanding that the agribusiness cannot give an answer to the environment, even though it's widely practiced. There are many works being done on agroecology. And you see, Dharma and ecology could also be a step to even show how beyond agro, beyond ecology, there is an intrinsic nature which includes humans. And that intrinsic nature, Dharma ecology, could be a term which would actually encompass what we're trying to say, because it goes beyond agro, it goes beyond ecology, it goes to the level of intrinsic nature. So when we want to produce our own food, which is the topic of today, we need to understand our natures, we need to understand the nature of the place we are, we need to understand the nature of the plants we want to put in that community. And when we have a very good understanding, then that really makes a nice production. And tomorrow, I think we're going to have a very good lecture from Subhash Palekar Prabhu, which is he's going to refer to spiritual food and a spiritual way of living, something like that. And we did talk about entropy and syntropy, and that's an interesting slide, because entropy is visible. Thiago Barbosa usually talks about that, something which finishes. He gives the example of fuel, gasoline. You put the gasoline in your car, it produces heat, but after it's done, it's finished. On the contrary, syntropy expands. If you put a seed on the soil, it just expands. So at the moment, we are living a system which is very entropic. Fossil fuels, everything is very artificial. So there's always a lack of something. And when you have syntropy, it becomes more like cooperation, abundant. So we need to make that shift from entropy to a more syntropic way of living. As you see here, this was India. All the transportation was done. A massive amount of sugarcane is being transported with bulls. It had a very natural pace. They all depended on natural foods which could be grown locally. And now when you transfer to tractors, it's a new scenario. This tractor needs a factory, needs specific components. They may not be there. You need oil. It pollutes. So we are still struggling with this transition. And we're very much attached to this entropic way of living. And here you have a look at, this was a seminar in Brazil, and Mahendra is the teacher. He's one of our consultants, and he's making a ladder of bamboo. Now, bamboo is another very syntropic material. You can make a house out of bamboo. You can make utensils. You can make floors. You can eat bamboo. The bamboo has so many functions. You can even take the renounced order of life using bamboo by taking a danda, which is a rod made of 3 bamboos. So bamboo is present in so many parts of our lives. So that's one example, a very syntropic element, which it gives so much abundance and use. And here's Prabhupada in New Vrindavan. He's there in the late 60s, 69, and he's basically showing the first ISKCON cow. That cow is called Kalia. It's a very interesting cow. And that cow was so special to him that he never forgot her. He would actually say, "Where is my Kalia? I want to drink that milk. That's such incredible milk." And one important point here is Prabhupada knew that without cow protection, it's very difficult to create abundance. The cow is one of the most syntropic beings on the planet because it will take some herbs, some grasses, even some dry grasses in place, and it will produce milk, which is incredible produce. The milk basically is described in the Bhagavatam as a supreme nectar, which can be called the liquid form of Dharma. And with that milk, you can actually produce sacrifice, and from sacrifice there are rains, and from rains there's abundance of grains and food and everything. So the intrinsic blueprint of nature is showing us how the cow is the most syntropic being for producing abundance in the universe. And you can see how Krishna himself is daily taking that lifestyle in a place called Goloka, the place of cows. And all his friends are Gopas, and the Gopas are the cowherd boys, and the Gopis are the cowherd girls. They all are living in a beautiful lifestyle of harmony with this blueprint. So we need to find what this blueprint is. There's a book written recently by His Holiness Krishna Consciousness Swami. It's called Cow Care in Hindu Animal Ethics, where he goes deeply into detail. It's an open access book. It can be downloaded. If you just type that Cow Care in Hindu Animal Ethics, you can get the book for free. And in that book, he does show something we learned in America from a very important member of a society, Astotarasata Prabhu. He compares cow protection to a house. And he says the foundation of that house, the very foundation, is the protection itself. You guarantee that those cows, bulls will not die. Okay? The walls is the care that you give to this cow. So that care involves a relationship. Everyone has a name. Everyone has a special attitude. And finally, the roof is dealing with the gifts of Mother Cow. So when you have the gifts, those gifts can give you enough energy to protect the cows, to take care of the cows. So that you have a whole picture. And that's so interesting because it's like a sutra. From this sutra, you can understand how to deal with the cows. And dealing with the cows, then you start to understand how you need also agriculture. And Sri Balaramji is the acharya of the agriculture. He's carrying a plow, his most charming personality. And he's showing how cow protection and agriculture have to be together. And to do that, you need a community of people. So that's how to do. So here in this slide, I want to show it. We are coming close to the end of this session. And I want to show you how this system is a syntropic system. And the cow here is basically grazing on a corridor of grass. But on the boundaries, you have a row of different plants which are being cut and chopped and dropped to fertilize the bottom and also to fertilize the row. And the cow is also fertilizing the ground with manure and urine, and it's trampling on it. So it's producing more and more fertilization there. So it's a very interesting system. And as a ministry, we are kind of looking at this system to see if we can replicate it more, where you'd have corridors of grazing pasture lands with herbs and everything that the cows would need. And on the side, you'd have many fruit trees, which are very useful to humans as food crops as well. You just need to watch the right timings to put the cows in, so she'll not eat the crops that you're interested in. She'll come on a later stage of this corridor. And that's an agroforestry system. So that's an application where syntropic and intensive graining can be adjusted for a very nice functioning system. And we're really researching this system to see how it would manifest, right? And we have a few projects which are actually doing a little bit responding to His Holiness Bhakti Raghava. In Mayapur, we have the Gurukul. You can see at the bottom of the picture, little boys taking care of cows. They're exposed to this culture very early. Therefore, they can have a lifestyle which understands all of this. So they, from a very early age, understand how to live, how to make a very sustainable living on the planet. And of course, Mayapur also is coming up with the most beautiful temple, the TOVP temple, and that's supposed to be a place to broadcast to the world this philosophy. And I think some steps are being taken to have a setting where people can learn a simple and more natural way of living. We already have a Goshala, which is doing well in many aspects. And I think Mayapur has a big homework to show the world a system which actually is sustainable and based on the land and the cows, right? On the other end, we go to Europe, Almviksgard, which is a farm which has a very important system. It's a community, like a village, with a temple. ISKCON is the owner of the whole property, but actually the managers is the community. And each one gives a donation, a fee, which maintains the temple. And they have a very stable cow protection program and agriculture program with the villagers, which is going on for 30 years. It's very stable. So that's another system where people growing food and they have discussed how to organize themselves in that term. You have Gitanagari, which is doing something amazing with dairy. Gitanagari is started with vegetables, supplying to the congregations, and then they shifted to dairy, and they specialized to the point that they have a certificate, organic certificate. They're very professional, and they're supplying temples and individuals with ahimsa milk. And now they're going back to CSA systems and expanding their community. So that's another example of a place which is working. And on the other side, you have New Vrajadam, Hungary, which is a very famous project, which has a very solid blueprint for community development, Varnashram development, as Maharaj was pointing out earlier. And they are expanding more and more their projects. And here in India, you have this project called GEV, Govardhan Eco Village, which basically is doing something which is fundamental to be understood in India. When we talk about growing our own food, we sometimes think we are not so prepared, but they have given one step forward, and they have actually cultivated the farmers around them. They have actually made connection with the farmers, and those farmers, called the wadis, produce food for them. So that's a system which is really important for India, is you make friends with people who are already farmers, and then they produce food for the community which is there. And they have 1,000 farmers affiliated to them. About 250 are currently being trained. They do regular trainings on agriculture, on so many aspects, like the cow protection aspect is coming up, but they offer fertilizers, they offer trainings, women empowerment, and so many other aspects. So they are setting an example. In Talasari, which is a neighbor farm, is benefiting from that cooperation. And Talasari also has 350 cows and bulls, and they're developing agriculture, and there's a whole development in that region of Maharashtra. To name a few, in India we have many projects coming up and happening. In Vrindavan we have a farm, we have in Ahmedabad, we have in Tirupati, some Goshala, and we have a lot of affiliates. We have also Hibri, and the Varnashrama Ministry does have a few initiatives, which we'll hear from tomorrow from Sri Ram. Sri Ram will basically guide us tomorrow. Yes. And I think I'm about to end this session for today, exactly, and basically thank the Indian devotee congregation and the ministry, the representative in India have organized this conference. It's our first one, but I think it came out quite well. It's the first day, and we really have to thank everyone. So I'd like to call here Sanatana Prabhu, so that we can actually come to the final steps of today. Hare Krishna, Sanatana Prabhuji. Oh, you're muted. Let me. Yes, okay, now we can hear you.
Right. Thank you for your nice presentation. Thank you, Bhakti Raghava Swami. Thank you, Thiago, and very much thank all the devotees who are online. And we want to very much hope that all of you can join us again tomorrow for our second part. I think so far it has been a very good success, and let's take it from here onwards. Thank you, Kalakantha. Thank you, everyone, for participating. I think
something we can. Yes, we can. And I'd like to say something to finalize. I think the Indian team is really doing a great job of coordination. We can give the link to other people. Tomorrow we have Subhash Palekar, so it's important lecture. He is a famous speaker in India and abroad. And then we have His Holiness Bhakti Rasamrita Swami on Saturday, which is another very experienced speaker. And then we have Madhava Prabhu on Sunday, also speaking to us. Okay, so great. So I'll thank everyone, and also our IT team who has been giving us support. That's been very nice. Okay, so everyone, thank you very much. And we'll keep posting the link on our Facebook page, and so you can all join tomorrow too. But do register, because through registration you receive a direct mail with the possibilities of how to participate.
Hare Krishna.
Hare
Thank you
Krishna.
very much.
Thank you very
Go
much. Hare.